I describe Scientology as a family-destroying human trafficking cult. You're working for Scientology 18 hours a day, 365 days a year. In Scientology, there's such a high cost for leaving. If you get kicked out, every other Scientologist has to sever all ties with you. So Scientology came to me and said, you have to never talk to your mom again.
La cienciología no es más que una estafa, una secta disfrazada de religión. Hoy exmiembro Aaron Smith-Levin nos va a contar cómo fue estar en la cienciología, cómo la cienciología destruyó su familia y por qué deberías alejarte de esta estafa global.
Okay, Aaron, thank you so much for taking this call. I know this is your whole thing, showing people why they should join Scientology. How was it being in Scientology? You were there for a young age, right?
Yeah, I was 4 years old when my mom joined Scientology, and she got into it very quick, very deep. And then I was 12 years old when my mom took me and my siblings out of school to start working full-time for Scientology. And then I worked for them full-time until I was 26. So from 12 to 26, I mean, I worked full-time. And that doesn't mean 40 hours a week. That means like 120 hours a week. That's seven days a week, 365 a year.
Wow. That's just child exploitation to the max, you could say, you know?
Totally. And you know, we didn't think, I didn't think about it that way at the time. You know, Scientologists believe that the only thing in life that matters is Scientology. Like, Scientologists don't care if their kids are educated about the world, as long as they can read, read and, have a vocabulary big enough to study L. Ron Hubbard and listen to his lectures and read his books and his bulletins. That is all they care about. It's actually quite rare for Scientologists to go to college for that very reason.
So for so long of your life, it was just L. Ron Hubbard, and nothing else. Were you able to watch the normal cartoons?
Not after the age of 12. Yeah. So I lived a relatively normal childhood from the age of 4 to 12. Even though my mom was working for Scientology, I still went to public school. I played baseball, I played football, played hockey, all that kind of stuff. But when we were taken out of school to start working full-time for Scientology, that was it. No more school for me, no more sports, no more going to the mall, going to the movies. That was it. To give a slightly better answer to your earlier question of like, why would someone want to stay away from Scientology? I describe Scientology as a family-destroying human trafficking cult. Scientology indoctrinates its members that we are all basically here on Earth as a prison, and Earth is a prison planet, and these bodies are prisons, and we are spirits, but we're trapped in these bodies, and we're being kept on this planet by the evil alien psychiatrists, and that really the physical universe is kind of a fake. It's a trap. It's part of the prison, and Scientology can basically unplug you from the Matrix. You know, you've seen the movie The Matrix, I hope?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great movie.
Okay.
Let's go.
So, Scientologists believe that if you go all the way up Scientology's levels, you will become like Neo, right? Like Neo. I love talking about this analogy because it actually so perfectly explains Scientology, right? So the Matrix isn't real. It's a computer program. And it's almost like Scientologists would believe that this physical universe isn't real either. It's a creation. We created it a long time ago, and then we forgot we created it, and we got trapped in it. But with enough Scientology, your spiritual awareness and powers get so great that you can now become senior to the physical universe again and manipulate it, just like Neo can manipulate the Matrix and stop bullets and fly. They truly believe that because we are all trapped here in this planet and in these bodies and in the physical universe, and because only Scientology can free you from all of that, truly nothing is more important than Scientology. Not your kids, not your parents, not your spouse, not your job, not even your life. And, it's pretty extreme. It's pretty fundamentalist. And, there's only one version of Scientology, and that's fundamentalist Scientology. And it's destroyed countless lives. countless families. And it's why I dedicate all my time to educating as many people as I can on YouTube about Scientology and the dangers of it.
Now, well, thank you. Yeah, that's a good work you're doing right there. Because where I found out was South Park. So I saw the whole thing. I love that episode. It's my favorite. I'm always showing it to people. So when that part is showing the whole Xenu thing, I couldn't believe that's actually the whole thing of Scientology. And how many thousands of dollars do you have to pay for them to tell you that?
By the time you get to OT3, you've probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow. So much. If you have no money, they don't have interest in you, or what do they do?
If you have no money, you can't do Scientology. The only way to do Scientology, if you have no money, is to work for them. Is if you work for them, whether you're on a 2.5-year contract or a 5-year contract, or also many people have heard of the billion-year contract.
Yeah.
So
is that only Sea Org?
What the Sea Organization is the billion-year contract, and regular staff members who are not in the Sea Organization do 2.5-year contracts or 5-year contracts. And technically, if you're working on a contract, you get your Scientology for free. But it very rarely works out that way because you have to get trained for your job. So it takes so long to get trained for your job, you rarely get around to doing any real Scientology. So if you don't have any money, I mean, Scientology is expensive. So if you don't have any money, you can't do Scientology unless you work for them.
It's like, oh, sorry, come back when you got money.
You know, what they will do is they'll keep you around doing very cheap introductory courses for like $100 here, $100 there. And actually they'll hardcore recruit you to join staff. So they don't really like to turn people away, right?
Okay.
Scientology doesn't actually have very many members. It's not an expanding organization. It's actually shrinking quite quickly. So they try not to turn anybody away. The only way they would like literally turn you away is if you had like a very extensive history of being under psychiatric care. Then they're like, go away, we don't want you. Or if you're like a homeless person, like if you're homeless, they're like, go away, we don't want you.
So this states that they say it's kind of, you say it's kind of like Neo from the Matrix. Is this what they call clear?
No, it's what they call OT or full OT.
Full OT, okay. Operating Thetan. What is Thetan? Oh, Thetan. Gotta record that on my video.
Do you know a funny way to remember it is it sounds like you're saying Satan with a lisp, like
Thetan.
Thetan. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's funny. All right.
You want me to explain the difference between clear and OT?
Yes, please do.
Okay, because it does get funny. Okay, the state of clear. L. Ron Hubbard wrote a book called Dianetics, and it's about his version of like the Freudian subconscious mind, right? This mind that's underneath the analytical processing mind. And he says this mind is recorded of moments of anything that's ever happened to you that involved pain or unconsciousness. So if you fell down and you hurt yourself, or you got knocked in the head or anything, and that these recordings, there's recordings of these incidents of pain and unconsciousness in your reactive mind, even if you were unconscious and you cannot recall it. And he said that these recordings, the words in the recordings, are taken literally and react upon you negatively later in time when in various moments when you're kind of tired, you're kind of hungry, and that these engrams, he called the recordings engrams.
Okay, engrams, yeah.
These engrams are really the source of everything that's wrong with you physically and mentally and emotionally, right? Anything that's wrong with you. You're nervous, you're shy, you're afraid, you're sick, whatever. All from engrams.
So from South Park, are those the things from the volcano, like the ghost spirits that? No.
See, you're talking. What you're talking about is going to be the difference between clear and OT.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I'll let you finish. Yeah.
So the Dianetics procedure is intended to erase these engrams and to get rid of your reactive mind. Now, remember, do you remember what these incidents? What do they contain? Pain and unconsciousness.
Pain and unconsciousness. Yeah.
Okay. So when Scientology determines that you have erased all of these incidents, these engrams, and you've gotten rid of your reactive mind, they say you have achieved the state of clear, getting rid of your own reactive mind. That's what that means. But then they hit you with the secret confidential stuff.
Okay, this is the super secret, the top secret.
On OT3. And they say, and honestly, this is such a well-kept secret in Scientology. Like, I spent 30 years in Scientology and I never found out about this confidential part until after I left. Okay?
30 years, wow.
30 years. Never heard a whisper from anybody. I guess I got to stop talking with my hands because I keep making all these. Okay.
It's pretty funny.
So when you get to the confidential stuff, they go, okay, so now you've gotten rid of your own reactive mind, but we got some bad news for you. Okay. 75 million years ago, a galactic dictator named Xenu decided to get rid of like half the population of all of the planets in the Galactic Confederacy.
Thanos.
I know, it's like Thanos. Except Thanos was much better at it. So Xenu had to call in all these people for tax audits, but they weren't really tax audits. When they showed up for their audit, which is funny, right? Because Scientology's processing is called auditing. When they showed up for their audits, Xenu froze them in glycol and loaded them up on space planes and flew them to Earth, which was called Tigiak, and dropped them in volcanoes and blew them up with hydrogen bombs. Now, why he had to do both of those things, I don't know. You'd figure either the volcano was good enough or the bombs would be good enough. I don't know why he had to blow the volcanoes up with the bombs. Okay.
Or blow up the planet, you know?
Up until that point, everything made sense. No, I'm just kidding. And so then they tell you that this incident of all these beings, you're working for Scientology 18 hours a day, 365 days a year, that was an engram. And that engram is in those beings, those thetans, reactive minds. And these beings are so messed up from this incident that there's just trillions of them blowing all over, just blowing around Earth. They don't even know where they are. They don't even know who they are. They don't know what happened to them. They don't know what time it is. But tens of thousands of these beings are stuck to your body. And you have to telepathically audit them to get rid of their reactive minds.
Yeah. Wow, Aaron Hubbard. What did you smoke to get to this?
So right off the bat, you know that a Scientologist believes they can telepathically communicate with spirits. Because that's what they're doing on the OT levels. Every level from 3, 4, 5, and 7, they are telepathically talking to beings that are stuck to them to sort of rehabilitate them and get them to wake up enough that they go like, oh, like I'm a being. And they leave your body and they shoot over to the hospital and they pick up their own body and they grow up to, you know, live their own lifetime instead of just being stuck to you and your body. And that's the magic levels of Scientology. And that's the difference between clear and OT. So clear is you've gotten rid of your reactive mind.
The engrams.
OT is, you've gotten rid of your engrams. And then OT is you're getting rid of these beings that are stuck to you and you're getting rid of their reactive minds. Not only are you getting rid of their reactive minds, but then you're getting rid of them off of your body. Because Aaron Hubbard says their reactive mind is affecting them, but then they are affecting you. So like you are you're being affected by their reactive minds. And so it's a two-step process. You get rid of their reactive mind and then you also get rid of them. And that's the difference between clear and OT and Scientology.
So you pass it on to somebody else after, basically?
No, well, no, you don't pass it on to someone else. You get them to go pick up their own body. But like, honestly, when you think about it, what are they doing? They're getting rid of sick souls. It's like, it's an expensive exorcism. It's just like a Catholic exorcising a demon. By the way, Scientologists believe that a demon would just be a thetan that has some things messed up with them. Everything is a thetan. So Scientologists believe in ghosts. They believe in spirits. They believe in poltergeists. But they just believe they're just Thetans. We're all Thetans. We're all just spiritual beings. And some of us are in good shape and some of us are in bad shape. And some of us haunt attics and some of us are stuck to the table. And so everything comes down to the Thetan.
So Scientologists believe the exorcist, that they'll look at it and like, that's a great example of somebody with bad Thetans.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, I mean, at the most like science fiction, right? The prophet is the science fiction writer who wrote the most books, I think, like over 1,000 books. Do you think he was a good writer?
I mean, they juice those numbers though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like L. Ron Hubbard used to write a bunch of Pulp Fiction stories, you know, like he used to write a bunch of Westerns. His stories would be in like magazines. And basically what Scientology did is they took every book he ever wrote and they translated it into every language. And then they took every lecture he ever gave and they like turned that into a book and translated that into like every language. They juiced those numbers just so that they could get him a Guinness Book of World Record. They got him a bunch of different Guinness Book of World Records.
That guy had vision.
He was a hard worker. You have to give him that.
Definitely.
It's a pathological liar and a con man, but a hardworking one.
Oh yeah, he knew what he was doing. Totally. So, can you tell me a little bit about Sea Org? How it was being at Sea Org more? You were there from 12 to 26, you said?
I wasn't in the Sea Org during that whole time. I basically spent 7 of those years working on a Sea Org base. Only 4 of those 7 years was I actually officially a Sea Org member. But yeah, so the Sea organization is basically Scientology's most dedicated core of staff members. And all of Scientology management is staffed by Sea Org members. And all of the organizations that deliver the confidential levels that we were talking about, only Sea Org members are allowed to work in those organizations. And so, yeah, from the age of 22 to 26 specifically, I worked in the Sea organization in Los Angeles, on L. Ron Hubbard Way in Hollywood. And I mean, what can you say? I mean, you're working for Scientology 18 hours a day, 365 days a year. The only people you know are Scientologists. The only people you work with are Scientologists. You live in buildings owned by Scientology. You eat in the cafeteria owned by Scientology. You wear uniforms. Like your life belongs to Scientology. You can't just have a day off. You have to ask special permission to take a day off. It's rarely ever approved. You don't just get holidays off, right? There's no such thing as the weekend. It's 7 days a week. Even if it's Christmas, you don't get Christmas off. Everyone works 7 days a week. There's no birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. These things don't really exist. They exist, but you don't get time off for them.
And when you were there, at some point, because you grew up with it, I imagine at some point you were believing the stuff they were telling you.
Yeah.
It's what you were given, right?
For the most part. Now, remember, I never learned that confidential stuff about Xenu and the body thetans. But all the lower level confidential stuff I was trained in, and I generally believed it. There was many things L. Ron Hubbard said that I was like, that doesn't make sense. I don't really buy that. But I believed in like the big pieces of the story. I definitely believed in the prison planet part of the story. I definitely believed in the state of full OT, even though I obviously never met anybody who really seemed to be all that special in Scientology. But I still believed. I mean, I guess to a certain extent, if you raise a child in a certain belief system, they just never really question it, But I remember one time asking myself, even at that young age, I remember going, if someone asked me why we put so much weight into every word this man says, L. Ron Hubbard, and why do we think L. Ron Hubbard is like the expert on everything he's ever spoken about? I was like, I'm not sure I would know how to answer that question. And I remember at the time, it didn't bother me that I didn't know. It bothered me that I wouldn't be able to answer the question. And I was like, shit, I need to know. I need a good answer to this question. And then I found out that L. Ron Hubbard claims that he is the reincarnation of Buddha.
Oh, wow.
And that he was Buddha. and that as Buddha, he figured out how to attain this state called Bodhi. But then after he finished his lifetime as Buddha, he was embarrassed to find out that Bodhi was only a temporary state, and he needed to reincarnate to figure out how to accomplish a permanent state of Bodhi. And that's why he came back and developed Dianetics and Scientology, and that the state of clear is basically a permanent state of Bodhi. And I remember thinking, that's a good answer. I remember thinking, everybody loves Buddha. Like, that's great.
It sounds great on paper, right?
I was like, that's all I needed. I just needed an answer to the question.
So what point was it when you noticed like this thing's fucking weird? I need to get out. This is a scam. This is a cult.
Yeah. It was kind of a long process, really. And it happened in a few different stages. So, because remember, I said being in the C organization, that's like being the most dedicated group of Scientology workers. And even though they sign billion-year contracts, you can leave the Sea Org. Like people leave all the time. And you can leave the Sea Org and still be a regular Scientologist. So I married, when I joined the Sea Org, I met and married my wife, right? We're separated now, but I'm just going to call her my wife. And so we got married in the Sea Org. Now, you're not allowed to have children in the Sea Org. If you get pregnant, they really want you to have an abortion. But if you refuse to have an abortion, you have to leave the Sea Org because they won't let you have kids. So in 2006, my wife and I left the Sea Org and we moved to Clearwater because her family was here as regular public Scientologists. My mom was still a staff member in Philadelphia. So she wouldn't really be around to help us at all. So her parents were public Scientologists and were mostly retired. So we could come here and she would have family that could help us. And about 3 years later, in 2009, some very, very high-level, famous Scientology executives left Scientology and started for the first time speak. They had already left before, but I didn't know they had left. And they started publicly speaking out in the press. And these were executives everyone in Scientology had known who they were. They were famous people in Scientology. And I was like, that was the first moment for me.
Okay.
I was like, uh-oh. Now, don't get me wrong. I was already not having fun working in Los Angeles. Like, we got pregnant so that we could leave the Sea Org.
Oh, it was conscious choice. We needed to get out of there.
Yeah. So, but I thought, I had my own reasons why I thought that experience was bad. I didn't blame Scientology, and I didn't blame David Miscavige, who's the leader of Scientology. But when these executives started speaking out about how horrifically abusive it was working at the highest levels of Scientology under David Miscavige, that's when I started to be like, oh, I have to, like, this is turning everything I thought I believed kind of upside down, because I thought David Miscavige was just, I thought working under David Miscavige would be like paradise.
But it was the opposite. It was hell.
It was the opposite. The closer you got to him, the worse it was. And I started secretly communicating with some of these executives, which would get you kicked out of Scientology. I started secretly communicating with some of these executives. Former executives. And then there was another very high-level Scientology executive who sent out an email. Her email said, I still love Scientology. I still love L. Ron Hubbard, but David Miscavige is destroying everything and people need to stop following him.
To everyone.
Every Scientologist in the world. Now, at that time, there was only maybe 30,000 Scientologists in the whole world. So
not too many.
Not too many. These days, it's 20,000 or less. Okay. So my mom was sharing that email with people, and she got kicked out of Scientology for that. Okay. And then, so in Scientology, if you get kicked out, every other Scientologist has to sever all ties with you. So Scientology came to me and said, you have to never talk to your mom again. And I lied to them and said, okay, I'll never talk to my mom again. But I kept talking to her. And for like 2 years, I was like secretly talking to her, but telling Scientology that I wasn't. And Scientologists report on each other like they write reports on each other. They rat on each other all the time. So people in my life, my friends, my daughter's nanny, like my daughter's nanny would literally ask them, so have you seen your grandma lately? And my kids were like little girls, right? So they didn't know that they weren't supposed to see their grandma. They didn't know that they should lie about it. So literally my girl's nanny, who was a Scientologist, would use my children to try and find out if I was still in touch with my mother.
Wow.
I mean, this sounds like Nazi Germany or something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so eventually Scientology realized I was just going to keep lying to them about being connected to my mother. And they sort of started to suspect that I was secretly talking to these former executives. And so then they kicked me out of Scientology in 2014. And then they go to my wife and they say, okay, you've got to divorce your husband because he's out of Scientology. Or yeah. And she goes, that's not going to work for me. That doesn't even make sense. And they're like, okay, you're out. And then they go to her parents and they say, okay, you've got to never talk to your daughter or your 3 granddaughters again because they're out of Scientology now. And this is where Scientology gets really, really, I said I call them a family destroying human trafficking cult.
Yeah.
Because my wife's parents had 4 kids who were all Scientologists. So Scientology is going to them and saying, which children would you like to keep? Because no matter what you do, you're going to lose some children and some grandchildren. And this is Scientology's enforced it's called the disconnection policy. And it's one of the things that makes Scientology such a destructive cult is that they don't let people leave without destroying families and destroying lives. And they did it to my family. They did it to my wife's family. They've done it to almost every Scientology family. I mean, even Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise hasn't seen his daughter Suri in over, 10 years? That's because of Scientology disconnection. That's because Katie Holmes is considered a suppressive person and Suri is connected to Katie. And so Tom can't be connected to Suri, right? So, I mean, Scientology has destroyed L. Ron Hubbard's life. It's destroyed David Miscavige's, family. Destroyed L. Ron Hubbard's family. Destroyed David Miscavige's family. Destroyed Tom Cruise's family. Destroyed my family. It's one of the reasons Scientology is failing and is such a small, shrinking, failing organization is because how can you succeed when you treat people this way, when you hurt people in this way? And that's what motivates me to do my YouTube content every single day is just to say, do you curse on your channel at all? Do you curse? Or no?
A little bit, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to say, you, David Miscavige.
Fuck you. And L. Ron Hubbard, too.
Yeah, and Elron too.
Man, that's crazy stuff, man. It must be hard. Everyone just stops talking to you, your friends, like your whole life. That's what you know. And then from one moment to the other, you're kind of thrown into the real world in a way. That must feel weird, starting over again and then seeing all these, just like you're kind of realizing slowly, more and more how up Scientology was.
Yeah. And that's why, in Scientology, there's such a high cost for leaving. And what that does, it creates a situation where people are still in Scientology who don't actually want to be there. They just don't want to pay the high cost of leaving. But even that is very dangerous for the organization because you wind up with people in there who they want to leave, but they can't. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to hurt the organization in other ways. Right.
Yeah. Like you.
And so, but I'm out now. So, right. Because when I was in Scientology, right, I was secretly talking to all those executives for years. I was sharing with them all sorts of insights and inside information about what was really going on in Scientology. And so, yeah.
Did they ever try and sue you?
No. Scientology hasn't tried to sue anybody in over 20 years.
No?
No.
After they were scared in South Park?
They never even sued South Park. They threaten to sue people all the time, but they never do because they can't really afford to sue, meaning they can afford monetarily. They can't afford what would come up in discovery. If they're the aggressors in a lawsuit, they have no protections when it comes to discovery. And the truth is, there's a lot of really horrific things that happen in Scientology. And they'd rather those things did not make it into a courtroom. And yeah, it's crazy. A lot of people still think that you should be afraid of Scientology because they'll sue you. They didn't sue South Park. They didn't sue anybody for the Going Clear documentary. They didn't sue anybody for the Scientology in the Aftermath TV show. There was another documentary called My Scientology Movie. They didn't sue any. I think that was Louis Theroux. They didn't sue anybody for that. I mean, they haven't sued any ex-Scientologist who's written a book in probably over 30 years. They've never sued me. I do anywhere from 1 to 4 videos exposing Scientology every single day. I'll do videos calling out Scientology pedophiles and rapists and sexual abusers. I'll show their faces. I'll say their names. And none of these people can sue me because it's true. And if they sue me, let's get the depositions going.
Let's get the investigation going. Yeah, true.
Let's get the investigation going. Feel free. I said my dream would be for Scientology to sue me. I said, please sue me.
Like in South Park at the end.
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Okay. I thought, I don't know why I thought, well, they have you would assume that they would be suing people because they like money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they haven't sued you. They have a South Park, then nothing to worry about.
Yep.
Hey, good work you're doing. Very good work. I think everyone should be aware because even here in Mexico City, there's I don't know if you've been to Mexico City, but right in this historic center, there's one of the most famous buildings. In like most touristy areas, 2 blocks away, it's a huge Scientology center. I'm talking like 4 floors.
Is that the one that's under construction, or is that one of the ones that's already open?
Oh, it's already open, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
Latin America is where Scientology gets a lot of its new recruits these days.
Okay, so it's just good that I'm doing this. So people stay away. Because some people think, oh, Scientology, I like science, right? So maybe I'll join Scientology. Actually, my brother, one time, I saw the South Park episode a long time ago when it aired. And then I went down to my brother's room and he had the Dianetics book. And I just started laughing my ass off. And I was like, you fell for it. You went to a Scientology place.
Where did he get the book?
He got the book at the Scientology place in Vancouver.
Oh, really?
Right downtown, yeah. They have a little place. It's not too big. But the one here is huge. Massive.
Yeah, sometimes people can get tricked into joining Scientology because they don't know that that's what they're doing. So, at the lower levels, Scientology is kind of like a self-help program. It's like sort of a self-empowerment kind of a mentorship. Will help you communicate better and organize better and be more disciplined and hustle and be more uptone and positive, and you can fix all your problems. They don't talk about Xenu. They don't talk about Thetans. They might talk about past lives kind of early on, but they don't talk about it like it's a religion. They talk about it like it's self-help.
They just reach out a hand. They see somebody who's confused, maybe lost, and they're like, here you go, we'll help you.
Yeah, and they're super nice to you. And, the people that you work with are usually pretty good looking, and they're telling you how great you are and how smart you are and how wonderful you are. And, if you don't know what it is you're getting into, you can get sucked in.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think that's covered enough, everything that I wanted to show. And thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.